13 said yes, 6 said no. 13 people said yes to remove it, 6 people said no.
All right. Thank you so much, Wendell.
Yeah.
Maybe we can ask our guest that same question.
Yeah,
And let's say
too long,
good
yes.
morning to Pastor Clive Dottin, my friend. How you going?
It has been a long time. Good morning.
It's
Good morning
been a
to
while,
all of
my
you.
friend. I haven't seen you in so long. You have not aged.
Recording in progress.
You look the same way. Good genes.
That makes good music to my ears.
There you go. Wendell, you want to ask Pastor our morning poll question? Let's see what you think.
Yeah, Pastor Dottin, welcome to the Power Breakfast Show. Of course, there's a clarion call now. Well, I don't know if to describe it as a clarion call, but there's a call now to remove the name Picton based on his atrocities and so on, and his historical past from our street signs and our landmarks. It's been supported, of course, by retired Professor Brinsley Samaru. It's a call coming out of the Emancipation Support Committee. How do you respond to that call?
I agree. This was a horrible guy. You know what I mean? I don't know why he has to occupy critical spaces in our country. So I agree completely.
Yeah. All right. What are you? What is the 100 years you're celebrating there, Pastor Dottin? That sign behind you there.
Oh, the church in Latin America and the Caribbean is celebrating. The organization started in 1922. So we are celebrating that by creating, I'm in charge of the creation of 10 initiatives that will, expand into several communities in the English-speaking Caribbean, from the Virgin Islands right down to Guyana and Suriname. So that is significant for me now.
Okay. An interesting symbol. It looked like sails on a ship.
Yes.
With a cross.
What is happening, for example, in Suriname, they're adopting a geriatric home with a school feeding, another school feeding with a Meals on Wheels program. That's one. While they adopted a small island in the Virgin Islands, and Antigua, to my mind, has the best project. Well, Trinidad is adopting Korea Village, and we started off with a health fair. But to my mind, out of the 25 islands, the best project is the creation of an institution for the homeless in St. John's. Okay. So it's projects like that we're on, and I'm in charge of that.
All right, beautiful, nice. All right, well, congratulations. 100 years is a milestone, is an achievement.
A long time, yes.
Any organization, yes.
Morning, Pastor Dr. Dottin. How are you?
How are you, my friend? Long time.
I'm good, giving thanks and praise.
Yes, to the master. Yes, sure. Praise
What's
God.
happening? How are you? I see you're busy.
Yes, I somebody asked me yesterday, retiree from UE, he says, boy, when you're going to slow down? I said, well, once I am up and working, I want to do my best. But we are involved in some significant school projects and looking at the inter-gang violence thing, and a team of about 30 individuals, volunteers and myself, we are developing a plan for what we call in November, our first project. By the way, the Caribbean Union Conference that I work for, we're into a new phase now. We just finished. We had President Paula May Weeks coming up to the conference of 237 delegates from the same 25 countries. And we have a team. My first project is the March Against the Assassins in the month of November. That is my first major project. The details are yet to be approved by the executive committee, but my boss has told me go ahead and develop the plan and bring it to him. But every year, the anti-drug group Friends Forever has a major initiative where we climax our work in the schools for the year by helping the young people to make positive lifestyle choices. This year, we've gone a little beyond that to what is called the March Against the Assassins. And that will, the march will be the climax, really, but we're going to be spending time with youth groups and particularly special secondary schools whom we feel are being affected by drug dealers and gun dealers. I have just come out of a real rough situation. I don't know if you have been following me on the media, but the killing of a couple in Moruga, I spent, people don't know this, but most of the 2-year lockdown I spent in Maruga was I was working on some guys down there. The guy kept telling me, Pastor, during this pandemic, cocaine flowing like a dose of sauce right through the place. And I wasn't taking him seriously until Aruna Chance got shot. She got shot in the month of March. It made headline news. She's a 37, she was, I have to say, a 37-year-old mother, 8-year-old child. The child is now an orphan because 3 weeks ago, the husband and herself were shot and killed. Luckily, providentially, the 8-year-old son was not there. So I buried both of them. So I've been heavily involved in the follow-up to that case. We have the guy the 8-year-old in a secluded spot. There's a plan for him, which I don't want to reveal now, but we have a guy in that spot. And then we have families in the East-West corridor that we continue to relocate because they have death sentences posted on
Well, let's talk about that a bit. It
Yes.
seems from the utterances of the Commissioner of Police and the Minister of National Security that we are not making the kind of headway that we would have hoped in gangs in the country. Why is that?
Okay. I was invited by the HR department to talk to the HR officers in an administrator to the police service on Friday, I think it is, at Center of Excellence. We have to break the back of the protection racket. I'm giving you my opinion. Let's go back to the case in Maruga. The killer is walking free. He's from down there. All right. If I know that, why hasn't something happened? The witness to the murder spoke to me. I think he delivered a statement of 32 pages to the police. Now, when these gangs are emboldened, so what you have is you have a claim by relatives of unlawful shooting of certain criminals. All right. And then you have other officers, all right, who are protecting. See, you don't only have a war between students of different secondary schools and gangs. It appears to me, all right, and watch out, I'm guarding my language. It appears to me that you have two factions in the police service who are fighting each other. So you're weakening your whole process, the whole process of fighting crime. That's one. Secondly, I don't think we are too arrogant to learn from the gang culture. The gang culture has an amazing recruitment program. I'll give you one example. At a certain secondary school, I was called in to talk to some of the young people. And there was a guy outside of the gate, a student of that school waiting. And amazingly, the guidance officer told me he has come to collect. I said, what do you mean by collect? He's a student in school, yes. Have you expelled him? No. So collect money for what? She says for cocaine and marijuana. This is now in this country. I'll give you a quick for the graduation time. I normally do about 15 graduations. This year was less because of the COVID. But this principal told me last month, he says, Pastor, I have to deal with a very perilous situation. I said, what's the situation? He said, about a mile from here, we have another secondary school. And you have the junior drug dealer. I said, okay, what do you mean by that? He says, we're working for an adult in the community. All right. And the junior drug dealer of that secondary school has successfully recruited some of the students. And he says it's dangerous stuff because the junior drug dealer from the adjacent secondary school a mile off is pushing stuff. I say, have you reported that? He says, well, we're in the process of reporting that. But the process takes so long. So it appears to me we have to speed up the whole process of getting these criminals, these gang leaders. They seem to be splitting, divide and rule the police service down the middle. And we don't seem to be anxious enough to deal with the cocaine trade because it appears it has a strong relationship to the politics of the country. And Karen Teixeira dealt with that significantly. Remember what she said about the cocaine trade driving, the economy driving and the campaign finances of major political institutions. So that I think there are several factors, and I just mentioned 3 there to you. And of course, I agree with the Prime Minister on the issue of parenting, because remember, some of the drug dealers and gun dealers are parents themselves. They have children too. I have bounced up in my, 16 and 22. I am 38 years in this business. All right. And there are families that have 3 generations of drug involvement, grandfather, parents, and grandchildren. So, and by the way, the army of volunteers is shrinking. I am still there at age 73, but they're shrinking.
So are you saying without intervention into the corrupt officers in the police service, we can make no progress? Because, I mean, I keep saying, we had changes in the police leadership. We had changes in the Ministry of National Security leadership over the last 15 to 20 years, and it doesn't seem to be getting better. It seems to be getting worse.
We're quite correct on that. It is getting worse. And then you have to remember, I agree, you have a minority, what I call an expanding minority. But the situation is so heavy that if you have an expanding minority in the police, in the prisons, a few rogue guys in the army, all right. And I have said before, behind every consistently corrupt cop is a businessman, a police officer, a businessman, an attorney, and a politician. I have said that over and over and over. And I believe that with all my heart. And the evidence is pointing in that direction. I will tell you something that is alarming to me. The criminals have no respect for anybody. Look at the killings in Port of Spain. We're now arguing, about whether Port of Spain is safe or not. And that's a big discussion. I'm watching the news last night. That's a significant discussion. That discussion going on beyond 10 days. Is it safe to come into Port of Spain and not safe? But you have to ask the question, where exactly is safe? That is, to my mind, very significant. So that you have the conglomeration of the minorities in your protective services, in a political directorate, in your business thing. Cocaine is not planted here. The coca plant is not planted here. It is planted in temperate or mildly temperate countries, not planted here. So what you have is that it's imported and it's flowing through the country. I am telling you, with all the talk we have done, with all the work we have done, it is flowing through the country. And then ad infinitum we're discussing about the judiciary and law reform and everything else. But that is a major issue too, because as you had pointed out in the Senate when I was around, you have people who have served more time in the prison waiting to be tried than the maximum sentence would guarantee. So you have fellas there, the maximum sentence is 10 years, they're spending 12 years there already. I have had some interviews recently because we have a thriving prison ministry, behind prison walls. Although Brother Barker is not doing so well these days, Richard Barker, he's not doing so well these days. But the guys who are in charge, and they tell me all kinds of horror stories there. So prison reform has to be a big thing, because otherwise, if you don't have prison reform, you have the prisons being an academy of crime.
So if you're saying elements in the police service corrupt, supported by big businessmen, supported by politicians, with a weak, a wounded judicial system.
Right.
Where are we going? Where are we going as a country? Where are we going? Where does the light point us in the direction of the light, if at all?
The light has to be, that we have to make volunteerism, to my mind, a major national issue. Because we could talk until, we blew in the face, unless we have a major volunteerism. And then,
but how is volunteerism, and I support volunteerism, but how is volunteerism going to give the political directorate the will to weed out the corrupt politician, weed out the corrupt police, weed out the corrupt businessmen, when they are such powerful networks involved? I mean, the suggestion that our economy, and I heard this from Selby Wilson over 15 years ago, that at that time, over 15 years ago, he suggested that the economy was 35 to 40% underwritten by the drug trade.
Yes, and the IADB, before I answer your question, the IADB, the Inter-American Development Bank, is saying that the drug trade now is equivalent to your national budget. Okay, 1/3 of your GDP. That they made that statement 3 years ago. So that's as recent as 2019. So that you have, but I'm saying start where we could start, because I am convinced that unless you see, we have the recruiting, so they're feeding the gang. So as one gets shot, you have one coming in. You have 2 or 3 young people coming in. So I would say, as a pastor, folks will condemn me if I don't say that, but I should say it. I'm convicted. We need a whole spiritual retooling of the entire society. All right, because what did Plutarch say? The est aliquid intus. There is something lacking inside. There's a spiritual deficiency. A lot of young people are growing up in loveless, godless homes. And then, so that I'm saying we have to increase the army of volunteers. Number 2, the army of volunteers will have to look clearly at being the bridge between the honest police officers and parents, because the need for parenting is significant. If you look at what's happening with the police youth club in St. James, with Officer Shabadi, I am a critical part of that. With the PRO, we just had a visit from the High Commissioner from Jamaica. We have a lot of young people. The age at which you have juvenile delinquency is decreasing. You go 16, 15, 13. We're down to the 11 to 13 age group now. And we have been, moving away. Some of them young people. The police youth club in Diego Martin, Sierra Leone is a safe space. So we have to create many more safe spaces. And then the churches and the state will have to look at seriously doing what has not been done. We did it. We're doing it sporadically, but a significant, well-structured program for empowering parents. The whole issue of single parenting has got to be looked at significantly. Most of the single parents are women. There's an increasing number, an alarming increasing number of parents, men alone, where the mothers have left their children and the fathers are taking care of them. But that is in the minority. So we have all these issues. And I keep saying we have to have the will to fight this thing. I'm not sure our politicians have the will. Unless they have the will, some may say because they corrupt like hell, so they don't want to fight it. But we are among the honest ones, and they are honest ones. We have got to have the will to move forward on this thing.
I'm listening, but I can't begin to imagine young people in this day and age using cocaine, especially after they would have seen what it has done to their uncles, their fathers, their grandfathers, and largely account for most of the homeless people on the street. And I'm saying that without any evidence. But I can't begin to imagine why cocaine is still such a big issue.
Wendell, give me a little minute here.
Mm-hmm.
We're in 2022, right? And about 12 years ago, I was in Barbados. Barbados has a serious challenge now. Mm-hmm. With all you see Mia Motley all over the international stage. I mean, cocaine, and I won Barbados about this 12 years ago. I went to every secondary school. And in one of the schools I went, the Form 4 and Form 5 boys were pushing the cocaine within the school system and the ganja. And the 1 to 3, and they had the best girls in the school. And I told them, you don't fix this problem, you're in trouble. All right. And they're in trouble right now. The suspended attorney, and the whole family who died. All right. And people said it was a fire. I mean, I have posted, if you follow me on Facebook, the real truth behind that. And nobody has challenged me yet on it. They were executed. 2 children, mother and father. Now, that is where Barbados has reached. And there's a cry and alarm there. And it's the same thing here, because you have a dangerous situation. And I think the media, and perhaps you all could, pilot this. I am not seeing much in the media about parents who have their children in secondary schools doing the pushing for them, and in the community doing the pushing for them. I'm not seeing that. And I'm not seeing the relationship between prostitution and the young people. This year, I went to a secondary school in Grandy. There are a few of them well, so I won't name the school. But I went to talk, they had an interfaith service. After interfaith service, providentially again, I was preaching in where we have the conference office next to the Mass Harbor there, the Adventist conference office, Dean Street. Paul, you should know it well.
Yeah, I know it. On the main road.
And the teacher from that same school was there. She said, Pastor, I want you to help us. And without saying too much to compromise, she said the Form 4 and Form 5 are pushing, and the Form 1s to 3 are using. So clearly there's a case for the Ministry of Education and the school supervisors and the district school supervisors to move in, because I have gone public with that scenario, and it's not a one school scenario. That's why I'm saying we have got to look at models. I mean, I hate to say it from a way like Lifeboat 14, where retirees and parents would man the school during the break period and during the midday, the lunch period, just to, bring some peace and sanity as you move on to other things in terms of building a strong PTA and that kind of thing. But, and then you have so much division in some of these institutions. But we have to decide as a country where we want to go. We have to go. We have a few success stories, but we're losing too many. As we save 6, we lose 10. And that is situation there.
Do you think then, Pastor Dottin, that our culture of highlighting and reporting all these ills is working negatively against us, as opposed to all the good things? Because, when you drive around the country and you pass by sporting grounds and so on, you see a lot of young people. You pass by some of the churches, you see a lot of young people. You know that that they're doing things in the communities, but it's hardly ever highlighted. It hardly ever makes the news. Do you think our media and including social media, is to focus on the negatives in our society?
Well, that you have raised a vital point. And I don't know how my friend, I always love to call him Brother Paul, Brother Pablo. I don't know how
it sounds natural, Brother Paul.
Yes, yes.
Natural.
But yeah. I agree with you totally. I did an address on emancipation and for the Penal Sports Foundation. I think it was one of the most significant emancipation programs on Monday. And they had a march. It was interfaith perspective. They had several stop meetings. They went to hotspots because the guys were telling me in penal that you have a situation in the police and they drop guys too, and they asked me to come down. In fact, the guy who asked me to come down is the head of the nursing faculty in UE, Dr. Ocho. You may know of him. And I told him significantly, is it Achille? You call him the guy who got shot, who championed the whole for murder accused. The front pages were dominated by crime and violence on Emancipation Day. And by the way, we have to look at the issue of how do we treat with those who are success stories. Look at Ajamu Crosby. Let me give an example. So I agree with you totally. And you in the media have got to address the media, speak truth to power in the media, because some media people they suffer from a lot of angst when you tell them what you just said. Some people in the media don't want to hear that at all. They say you're criticizing them, you're not dealing with the real issues, etc. But I made a significant point of Ajamu Crosby. In 2016, Ajamu Crosby scorched the CAPE exam, first in the region, all right? And in the sciences too. He was physics, maths, genius, from Beaton. Father walked out on them, 2016. It's 6 years now. He just published a book. And perhaps I could arrange for him to come and have a chat with you all, because he is unemployed. He has a bachelor's of science in mechanical engineering, and he's unemployed. Why I mention this? Why couldn't Ajamu and people like Ajamu, because you have Marcel, you have a few others, dominate the front page? Rather than this murder of this guy, you're not sure what his lifestyle was all about. You have pictures of him walking with 2 other guys when he was set free and that kind of thing. But why it had to be, why you had to, on Emancipation Day, highlight, front page, murder stuff, all of that. And I couldn't agree with you more. I think there needs to be a re-engineering of the media also in terms of positive role models, because we have positive role models.
Yeah.
We're losing too many young people, and I'm not saying don't highlight.
I'm fighting in my mind to try to counteract you two on that, and I can't proffer an argument because while I agree that the media has a stronger role to play in identifying positive stories, because when you look at international media, there is a concerted decision. You can tell there's been a decision to balance the front page stories, because the front page stories have a psychological effect on the country as a whole. So you would find that if there's a positive sporting story, the Yankees win, so it lifts New York psyche for the day. You understand? Because crime will happen in every jurisdiction or most jurisdictions. And yes, when you look at days like Emancipation Day, when there's a plethora of positive, uplifting images that could have graced the front page, because guess what? The crime on page 2 ain't have any less value than on page 1.
Of course.
But the overall impact will be more progressive on page 1 for emancipation pictures and stories. You're right. There needs to be a decision from editors about what their role is in uplifting society, as opposed to just the constant diet of negativity that we see on the front pages. I agree with that. But also there's the other argument that the media also will reflect what's in society. So there needs to be a balance of what's in society reflected, going back to the original point of balance and positive stories, because there are positive stories.
Yeah,
of course.
You answered that yourself just now in a poll.
I answered it myself.
In that crime happens every day. But some of these achievements of these young people doesn't happen every day. And we need to highlight it when it does happen. Yes. Because you drive through back streets, and I was driving through a back street the other day. I think it's Stone Street one night. And I saw a bunch of young people, and I said, what are they doing there in the dark? Guess what they were doing? Practicing a dance move and singing. But if you looked at them, if police had passed and looked at them, police may have gotten another opinion.
But then the fundamental question is what you're asking. What we're asking is, like any other institution, because we speak about the judiciary, we speak about the executive, we speak about the opposition, we speak about the clergy, the religious bodies. And because the media has been identified in our constitution as a significant institution, we have to ask ourselves, like every other institution, the business community, what is the overall role of the media in national development? And I think if we answer that honestly, the media can then look at itself and say, am I fulfilling that role? Is my role only to reflect the news, what's happening on a daily basis, which is a significant part of the role? Or is my role wider in terms of providing a lens for society in a balanced manner that will help in national development? Because if the country crash, the media can't survive anyway.
Exactly.
Well, could I show you where we are? We're dealing with one case. I have a case where I'm dealing with family of 12, okay, in the middle of the corridor, where there's been significant shooting, where there's an assassin walking free, and he is an assassin. So they are targeting a particular young man, and we got him out of the area. The mother piloted that. The mother is married to the father. It's another common law situation. But the father has very little to do with the children. And they're talking about 10 children. When the boy was accused of being part of the ISIS Rasta City gang warfare in Tanapuna, and I'm calling the name of the place now, in Tanapuna, the church got involved, Tanapuna SDA Church, and they called me, and the mother got on to me. The mother is a struggling working mother. Already one of the children, not yet 18, has a child. So statutory rape took place there. I mean, and by the way, we still have 2,000 teenage pregnancies every year. And that has to be addressed. We could jump high, we could jump low. So here's a grandchild in the mix of all of that. And the mother, and I'm talking about current stuff, the mother, I rushed up there, and the mother told me, she said, Pastor, 3 gunmen came in there. And it's by the mercy of God. My last 3 children, the 8-year-old and the 6-year-old and the 4-year-old wasn't killed. She says, you look, and she cried me to the spot. We had to do some repairs to the home because we were open to all the elements, including the gang element. And in that house in Tanapuna, they are actually at the epicenter of the gang warfare, the epicenter. And so you have a door that not, attached properly to the rest of the house. So we had to deal with that, Now, what I'm saying is we have the boy in hiding. So I had to go and see him because he needed some money. And we were down City Gate. That was where we met. And there is a lovelessness that young people experience in this society, Paul and Wendell and the rest, that Steve, that has to be addressed. What do I mean by that? This guy told me he's 19 years older, that death threat, because he's accused of pulling the trigger that killed a father and the daughter. And he said, you know something, Pastor, I wish I could stay with you right through. I said, it's not possible, no, but let's talk to that in the future. And I got the impression from him that he wanted to hang out that day with an adult who was mature and an adult who cared for him. Now, caring might make news, if you understand, back with the media again. But it is clear to me that there are a lot of young people who the gang dealers care for. They are searching for caring rather than searching for killing people and being involved in the gun trade.
Well, you well know, because I know it's part of what you studied like myself. I mean, gangs are extremely structured in a way that they are able to attract young people and make them feel like part of a collective. Everything they missed at home, they get in a gang for all the wrong reasons. Sure, and that's why gangs are able to attract young people, because they make a young person who has not had the attention at home, not had the support at home, not had the encouragement at home, to feel a part of something, though it's something that's illegal and something that's wrong. But they get the same feeling that they would have gotten in a kind of family-like situation. And then that's why they go out and do whatever the gang tells them to do. And we have to understand that and why gangs proliferate anywhere, not only in Trinidad, Tobago, but anywhere in the world. Sure. What are we doing, as you both said earlier, to provide alternatives to that? The volunteerism thing is part of it. Make you feel better. Remember, we had Cubs and Scouts and Girl Guides that were strong in the country, that your child could go and join something and learn something and be a part of something greater than themselves. We don't have that many of those anymore. The Police Youth Club is one of them, but it's just one in a society that's grown so much and not provided the kind of support it should.
And Paul, and the rest of you, let me just tell you this. The Scout movement, the Guide movement, the Pathfinder movement, the Cadet movement, because cadets are still around. Mm-hmm. But I'm saying we need to have a strong leadership development program for leaders of these volunteer groups. And when I talk about volunteerism, I'm talking about all of that. But some of these are still around, the Pathfinders but if I had to deal with this thing, I'll be honest with you. Groups like Police Youth Club, Sobol, I will multiply Sobol. I will invest heavily in Sobol. Milat and my part, I will totally decentralize. So it must go in different areas, because there are heavy success stories out of Milat too, Don't forget Milat, which is a government initiative.
Milat and my part are two very successful organizations.
Yes, the Civilian Conservation Corps. What we have to do, so we have projects, and still with all this social media and things, some parents who even know how to access some of these services. So it's vitally important. Why I talk about leadership in some of these groups? I went to one of the groups. All right, I think it was this Civilian Conservation Corps, a group in the northeast of Trinidad. And I saw a retired soldier trying his best to control those young people. And he's doing a horrible job. He just wasn't able to cope. And I got in the middle of the mix with the young people there, only to discover the most prettiest girl there was a drug dealer inside there. All right, and she was making her presence felt while I was there. So that's how she markets herself. And she was pushing the drugs inside there. So that I am thinking youth leadership has got to be a major issue going forward of community group. And we must make it a cause for national concern while the government's program expand. But these are some of the things we have to do. Now, I should tell you, things like police youth clubs and those things are regarded as soft policing. That's a misnomer, if ever there was one. Okay, because these guys are doing great programs. You have 14-year-olds who are handling guns. I just intervened in a situation of a 14-year-old girl, a 14-year-old guy, all right, who into the gun trade already. And the parents called me to go in. I called Officer Shabbat, and we both went into the house to break up that thing. So that I am saying we are in a crisis, and all of us must take a certain level of responsibility, speak truth to power, and do what we can. But all what we discussed here are issues that the state must integrate as the budget coming up just now into its machinery.
Yeah. And that mentorship program, I think, is vital. And we could do it, without a structure. If everybody takes the responsibility to look out for at least one person. Could be a member of the family, could just be a member of the community.
Think of this suggestion for a minute. this country provides millions of dollars in gate support, and I've said this over many years.
Mm-hmm.
And once you're Trinidad Tobago nationally eligible, I benefited from gate. You understand? And I have always thought that part of the requirement for accessing gate that the government pay for, whether it be your undergrad or part of your master's, is that you have to provide some sort of volunteer service at an assigned area.
Mm.
You shouldn't get it for free.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You understand? Because it sets a bad precedent in your mind. So it's not a job. You're not working it off, but you are assigned a role in an elderly home to supervise children. You're going to do undergrad, which means you have some basis in maths and English at some level. Mm-hmm. And you are to clean up a park, to clean up a beach, and you have the Ministry of Youth Affairs can be the coordinating body for that, where they assign you. If your course of study is 4 years, for 2 of those years, you have to put aside a certain number of hours every week to fulfill this task as part of the requirement of you keeping that gate money coming.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Who loses with that?
Yeah.
Nobody loses. And you also instill in the person a sense of responsibility.
I don't know if we have the time to take a couple calls with Pastor Dottin.
Sure, no problem.
Yeah, so we could open the lines. We have as our guest Pastor Clive Dottin this morning, and I'm sure I'm getting a lot of messages about the conversation we're having. So I know a lot of people want to participate. You could call in now 222-TALK and 612-TALK and have a chat with Pastor Clive Dottin. You know, you might have an idea that we haven't thought about, you know, thus far, and you could bring it forward this morning. You know, and when sometimes when you see a lot of the banks and financial institutions declaring these hundreds of millions of dollars in profits, you wonder sometimes if they couldn't put a little more. Eh?
Wendell,
even now. Yeah, even now.
Why we talking about 4%? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Well, more so now in some instances.
Yes.
Some banks and insurance they lose. Banks in particular didn't lose money during the pandemic, you know.
No.
Banks made more money because they found ways to pivot and go online and charge you for the online thing too more.
Well, and a lot of people couldn't even spend the money that they were working for. It just had to stay there. They had nothing to spend it on. They had not know where to go, you know.
Yeah, well, you have to pay more for food.
The money remained in the bank. You know, so maybe they could put out a little more effort to help people. We have any calls?
Public Bank said $1 billion profit so far.
Mm-hmm.
Good morning. Good morning.
Hey, morning. Wendell.
Morning.
Hey. Dottin, morning, sir.
Morning, man. Yeah, Dot's here. Yeah.
Nice to hear your voice, man.
Yeah, same here. It's just been a long time. Yes.
I see me in the land and deliver with people falling on there, boy.
Yeah.
Mr. Patrick, you have a question or suggestion?
Mr. Dottin was talking about the youth mentorship program, boy.
Yes.
I'm watching one of your brethren in Jamaica, Samuels, have a nice big program with that, brother.
Yes, sure.
Some weeks back, I was in a line. Some youth men and young ladies came in the linemen. All of the linemen, but a youth man here was talking and things. And he graduated and come and he sit down and he said, boy, he said, you know, I see this happening, deja vu.
Yes.
Yeah, the boy tell me now, he said, listen, I do enough thing, boy. I fed up lying with them people out there, boy. I want to lie with different people. And as I was talking about the man was like, how with you? I said, some of them youth man want examples, boy. They want guidance, boy. They fed up. So we need to keep our mentorship program. We could mentor a youth. Everybody mentor a young man and things because some of them fellas want to come out from that.
Listen, Patrick, you are completely correct. And I called that experience where the guy wanted to hang with me for that day. I was cramped for time. But I agree with you totally. In fact, I feel we are misreading the youth population generally. A lot of them want to come out and looking for somebody to lean on. I agree with you completely.
And when I look around and think, when I look around, In Mauritania, a little handful of youth really getting trouble. But the majority of youth, I believe the positive and things about that.
Yeah, that's how I feel too.
Because if you go to all them churches and they see among the youth occupy themselves in education, in church and things by temple, the mosque, it's only a handful of fellas by 2-3 bad apples for the whole bunch.
I ain't sure it's just 2-3 bad apples now, eh?
Yeah, but we have to try to win them, boys.
Yeah, we have to try.
All right,
we mustn't give up. We mustn't give up.
Yeah. And we mustn't take the attitude, which is sometimes how I get the impression from our security services, that just leave them, let them kill out one another, and hopefully the problem will go away. You get the impression that that's what's happening?
Of course. I mean, Wendell, you are hitting the nail on the head there. That is the attitude. And when the murder rate is 105 more than the same time last year, we wonder, but like we miscalculate.
Yeah.
Because part of the problem with us is that once it's not my child involved, I don't care a hell about anybody else.
Yep.
And that has crept into the society, and it's unfortunate. And by the way, I know we don't have time. I see we have a minute to 8, but I'm saying the division in the politics is not helping us. We're still back in the 1840s with the politics of this.
Yeah.
It is divisive. It is vicious.
Yep.
It is horrible. And you know how they unite? They unite for evil. So the fellas saying, it have a certain drug lord down the road. He contributed to both parties, PNM and UNC. So we unite for evil. We can't unite for righteous developmental cause.
Yes. Because one side, once one side in opposition, the crime is bad, the country going to hell.
Of course.
And then because you will say the worst things about your country because you want to run it yourself.
Exactly. And a guy came to me yesterday, and I close up with this. He said, Pastor Boy, well, I know he has political leanings on one side. And he says, boy, listen, man, slow down. What he's actually telling me, don't speak truth to power. But he feel I'm nudging the other side, not his side.
Right,
so you're not being genuine. You're not being authentic at all. And I read him like a book. You know what I mean? But we mustn't give up. And there's hope. Because when we save one, it makes a difference.
Always.
All right, Pastor. Thanks for being with us.
God bless you.
Be safe out there.
Thank you so much, Pastor Dottin. All the best to you.
Take care.
Okay, Steve. God bless.
All right, take care. All right, let's get into 8 o'clock
Recording
news brief.
stopped.
All powered by Champlain Services.
This is your news bulletin from Power 102 Digital.
Pastor Clive Dottin says it appears to him that there are two